The question is that the motion be agreed to. Call Alfred Naro.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I rise and take a call on this Residential Tenancies Safe and Secure Rentals Amendment Bill in its first reading. Can I just put on the record immediately from the start that National won't support this bill? And I'd like to spend the rest of my time explaining the reasons why. I do acknowledge the member, like all members who put themselves forward in a private member's bill with the right intent, and I understand the intent of what she is wanting to do through this bill, which is around a safe and secure home, which is ensuring that security of tenure becomes an important issue for lots of our families, in our communities as well. However, we cannot support some of that intent. I have to say that we've already had the Residential Tenancies Amendment Bill that's come through the Social Services Select Committee. There was quite an exhaustive process to be able to find a balance through that process to address some of those issues. One of the issues I think that we've been talking about and out in communities, and the member has been talking about the security of tenure, but also too the types of homes. Are they healthy? Are they well? Are they fit for purpose to ensure that our communities, our families in particular, our whānau, will have a place of lodgings that will allow them to be able to thrive and to grow as well. And I know the Greens have often talked about this, but the whole aspect of the Home Start program and about healthy homes and ensuring that we now have over 300,000 homes that are fit for purpose in regards to being healthier and warmer. So, we have to talk about the things that we have doing, because the member has talked about wanting to do more, but she doesn't often talk about some of the other things that currently exist as well. So those are elements in which, under this government, we've ensured that our homes are healthier, and it's right across the board. We know that at least 85% of our state houses are now warm, dry, and are healthier. So these, the very people that the member talks about in those vulnerable situations actually exist in those homes. So this is some of the work that's already been done. The member talks about, I suppose, the areas of need and of concern. As a government, we've already been addressing those issues as well. So, Mr. Speaker, we believe that the rhetoric around the great concern, this government has already been meeting those. But let's take, I suppose, the key element of the member when she talked about the rights of the tenant over the rights of the owners, of the landlords of their properties. Now, this is a significant principle of issue that needs to be debated, because this is what we're talking about. The member is saying that the rights of the tenant, in some cases, should almost be, and in some cases override, the rights of the owner and of the landlord. Why shouldn't they have the rights to be able to demand the first right of refusal? Why shouldn't they have the rights to demand the fact is that they don't have to pay the cost, the letting fees and so forth, when these things are pragmatic and practical? They've existed for some time. Mr. Speaker, I can remember that through the submissions, what was quite clear was that, and isn't often highlighted, that almost 70% of the home ownership rentals that exist are actually mum and dad renters that are out there. There was a time in which, as a country, we encouraged the LAQCs, and there was an ability for people to save for their retirement, in which they could have a rental property. In fact, in most cases, it was one or two, right? And, under this government, if you'll know, we've actually changed that legislative framework, so we've removed some of the benefits that existed under that. But that still exists. A number, at least 70% of those that have rentals are actually mum and dad investors who do the best to ensure that their homes are cared for, that they're healthy, that they're warm, and they best suit their tenants as best possible. We know that exists. But we also know that there are tenants, there are landlords that don't provide this property as well. So I just want to go on record that the member is now challenging a key principle, not only of law, but a key principle of being part of a democratic society where landowners now are challenged, sorry, not landowners, the homeowners are now being challenged by this bill to say that the rights of a tenant should in some cases supersede the rights of the owner. And I want to make that clear to those who are listening, because that's part of what this bill is being proposed here tonight by this member as well. So as the member said, there are 6 parts, and let's go through them. There are 6 parts to this bill that the member is proposing: giving tenants a right of renewal when a fixed term tenancy expires, require landlords to state the criteria of future rent rises and tenancy agreements. So let's take that first point and let's debate some of that, Mr. Speaker. So this currently exists already. Section 60B of the current Residential Tenancy Act sets out that a tenant who wishes to exercise a right under the tenancy agreement to renew or extend the fixed term of tenancy must provide the landlord with written notice no later than 21 days. And as the member herself has said, when there is a good relationship, when the house has been looked after, when
When we know that they're offering a 6-monthly, maybe a yearly review where the landlord will come in, will check the facility, make sure that everything is fine, there's no problems, we'll deal with any repairs and maintenance. There hasn't been an issue, there hasn't been a problem. And so that currently exists. I'm not sure whether the dilemma that the member wants to require, which is the fact is that now the tenant should have the right to dictate and determine to the owner. To dictate and determine to the owner. That's the key principle that we're being challenged here. I'd like to remind that other members of the House need to remember this. By supporting this bill, that's actually what we're doing. We're removing the rights. Now, security of tenure, we would all agree, that's important. It happens by goodwill. It happens by caring for the property. It happens because there is a relationship of trust that exists. That exists, and we know that's there, so that's currently there. So, I just want to say that the member has turned around to try to use this as a way of challenging that. Let's look at some of the other areas that the member in her bill in the 6 points is also one. Ensuring tenants may no longer be charged a letting fee. Now, she's called this an injustice. She's called it injustice when the reality is the administration costs, and whether it be that people have a property manager or have a real estate agent that would do that for them, the letting fee is an administration fee that's used to administer that proportion of that rental agreement. So what's the harm that we're doing here? So the member now is not only wanting to remove the rights of the homeowner, but also wanting to say we're putting the extra burden on the letting fee, the administration costs. That's why she laughs, because she probably knows, I don't know, she could be a rental owner herself. But the reality is now we're putting the burden back again on the homeowner. I just got to feel that there's a lot of New Zealanders out there that will not be liking and hearing what this member is wanting to propose, because really it's a real challenge to the democratic right of any landowner in this country, any homeowner in this country, I should say, and this homeowner in this country. It's a really interesting debate that we have. I'll be interested to hear what the other members have to say as well. Let's also talk about the 4th point. Create a default minimum of 3 years for fixed-term leases, prohibit rent increases more often than once every 12 months, and repeal the 42 days notice. Mr. Speaker, it just gets a bit concerning when the member will wanting to propose this, and the reality is that we've heard from, for instance, community housing providers who've taken on the rental properties, who now, through the devolution of their stock into their care, know some of the challenges that they have when they've got tenants in their properties that don't care and look after this. So this bill is weighted so far onto the tenant that you have to say it's removed any rights or even responsibilities that come to the landowner, to the homeowner. I keep calling landowner, it's a homeowner as well. Okay, Mr. Speaker, as well. Let's look at such a change would risk unintended consequences and would we believe would create higher rents as well. Section 13A, 1M states that the tenancy agreement must include a statement, if applicable, that the tenant shall pay any fee or other charge for services rendered by any solicitor or letting agent relating to the grant of their tenancy. And again, Mr. Speaker, what I get concerned about is this member's proposing, remember we said that there's 70% of those rentals are actually mum and dad investors. They may have 1, maybe 2 properties. On average, they're 1. There are people that are wanting to use this as an ability to be able to care for themselves when they go into retirement, and this member now wants to take away their ability to be able to make their decisions around how they rent the property, who they rent the property to, and is putting all the security of tenant there. They may moan and groan, but here's the reality that exists out there. You can talk to all the advocates around tenancy, but guaranteed you won't be talking to those who are the homeowners, those who are there, and I guarantee, okay, I'll be interested to hear what that, because that's not what we're hearing on the ground. That's not the chatter that we're hearing from all those out there who say that this bill is ridiculous. We've already, through the Residential Tenancies Amendment Bill this year, passed an ability to make a difference that we know is quite critically important. So we talk about the member over there is talking about that. What it made a difference? So we're now ensured that we're forced there at the insulation of homes, the mandatory ability to have smoke alarms in there. We've gone to, there's a balance that exists to ensure that what's called landlords take care to make sure that the home is warm and dry, it's healthier, it's fit for purpose to meet the needs of their tenants. Mr. Speaker, we look at this bill, again, we hear the intent of the member, but I cannot applaud, I cannot support this bill and the issues that the member is trying to raise. Well, Mr. Speaker, I have to say, we've already had quite an exhaustive. Members on the opposite side know they've been through, we've heard the submissions, we've heard them talk about the factors is that the burden of cost will eventually go back onto the tenant. That's the burden of cost. The member hasn't considered that. In fact, there's a fairy tale world that everything should be well, but that members should know that landlords have talked about those tenants who have ransacked the house. They've had to pay the cost, but the member still wants to believe that everything is bright and rosy. Mr. Speaker, we do not commend this bill. We do not support this bill to the House.